All right, we're ready to start working on our mold for our concrete end tabletop. So over on the glue up bench, I've got some material. So this material, the material we're going to be using is called melamine. It's a particle board with a plastic coating on the top, a hard plastic coating on the top and the bottom. This stuff comes in 4-foot by 8-foot sheets. It's really heavy and awkward to work with on the table saw. So I've taken the liberty of ripping up some smaller pieces. Don't forget we're looking for something that's 14 inches wide, so this stuff is a little bit wider than 14 inches wide. So what we're going to do, you're going to get your material from here, and we're going to grab the material, and what we'll do is we'll take it over to the miter saw to square an end. So here we are over at the sliding miter saw. So our first step in our process planning worksheet for the base of the mold is to square an end. When I say square an end, I always like to say too, maybe just take a sliver cut. I'm just taking a little tiny bit off of this edge to ensure I got a nice straight clean cut and that these angles here are 90 degrees. Okay, so it's been a while since we used the sliding miter saw, so let me just quickly go back over that with you. First of all, I'm going to pull it out, and without it turned on, I just line it up, and I can see I'm just going to take off a little bit. Okay, I don't want to waste a whole bunch of materials. So with the sliding miter saw, what we do is we slide it out. We would pull the trigger, and once the blade gets up to full speed, then what we can do is we can plunge it all the way down into our work, as far down as it'll go. Don't worry, you won't cut the table. And then you push it away from you. And then you let the blade stop spinning, and you can lift it up. So that was my dry run. So I've got the board held down, clamped down with my hand. I'm ready to go. Slide it out. Slide it out. Let it stop. Bring it back up. Now this board is too wide for the capacity of the saw, so I wasn't able to go all the way through it. So I've got a little chunk right here that I need to cut off. So we're going to cheat a little bit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over. Take my time, and I'm going to line up the saw blade with the cut that I previously made. So we're only cutting a little bit this time. There's no reason for me to slide it out. I'm just going to use the plunge action. All right, so again, I start it up, make sure the blade's up to full speed, plunge it down, wait till it stops spinning, and then I can inspect my work. So what you want to do is you want to look to see if you cleaned up the whole entire edge. It was nice and flat and straight, and so I think I got it covered. Looks pretty good. So our base is 20 inches long. So now what you do is you take this board, take it back over to one of the benches and do your layout work. I'm going to do it right here though, because I've got nobody waiting for the saw. So I'm going to use my 25-foot tape measure, my pocket tape. I hook it on, keeping in mind, right, I don't measure diagonally. You want to measure parallel to the edge. So I measure parallel, I'm parallel to the edge. I put a mark at 20 inches. Now what I want to do is I'm going to use a framing square. Okay, we got all kinds of different squares in the shop, but this has a nice large capacity, so I'm going to use this framing square. When you use the framing square, it's got to get hooked onto, right? It's got to get hooked onto the edge of the board. And I just slide it up until it lines up with my pencil mark I just made. And so I go ahead and I mark that. So think about what we got right now is I measured from this edge to here is 20 inches on my line. If I line the saw blade up directly on my line, okay, when I cut, the board won't be 20 inches. It'll be a little bit less because the blade has thickness, and the thickness of the blade is called the kerf, and that's just sawdust that's just going to get thrown on the floor and vacuumed up in the exhaust system. So what I want to do is I want to put my saw blade, in my situation, I'm putting it on the left-hand side of the line. So sometimes in this situation I think it's obvious, but sometimes it's not so obvious. So I always like to put a little X on the side of the line where I want to line up the saw blade. A little check mark. So again, I'm going to take my time. It's all lined up on the edge of the mark. So I slide it out, turn it on, plunge it down, push it forward. Again, it didn't go all the way through, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over. I'm going to line up the saw blade with the kerf that I've already made. Looks like it's lining up in there nice. Again, I don't need the slide action this time. I'm just going to go ahead and plunge it down. All right, there's our base. Currently, it's 20 inches long, so that's exactly what we want. The width is probably not quite correct right now. So what we got to do now is probably our third step is we need to bring this over to the table saw and rip it down to the proper width. So here we are at the table saw. Remember what we're going to do over here was we're going to change the width. We need this board to be 14 inches wide. So right now it's just a little bit big. So what we're going to do is lift up the black lever, slide the fence over to 14. Lock down the fence. Do a refresher on the table saw. Our board always has to be flat on the table. Okay, and it needs to be always up against the fence. So what we'll do, we'll take it over here. It's flat on the table. It's up against the fence. And this is such a wide board, we're going to have better control if we don't use a push stick. So we're just going to use our hands to push this thing through. I've already got the blade at the proper height. The blade guard is on. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this through, I'll push it through. And you got to remember, you got to push it clear past the blade. All right? And you could have a helper grabbing the piece on the other side. Or if you want to use the table, right? You just push it on the table, and if it falls on the floor, no big deal, as long as it doesn't come backwards at us. I'll wait till that comes to a complete stop before I reach over and grab that board, or if I had a partner, they could have walked it around to me. So here we go. Our first cuts in construction. Okay, so it's 20 inches wide, 20 inches long, 14 inches wide. What we need to do, you're going to grab a marker at this point. Okay, you need to put your name on the edge. Okay, probably in a couple different places would be even better. Don't put your initials on it, put your name, put your period. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to store these in the lockers underneath your work table. So the closest locker to your assigned seat, that's where you're going to store this.